So today for Call's Question Time, I got the pleasure of being joined by my friend Eric Schwartz. Hi, Eric.
Hello, Andrew. Good morning. How are you today?
Very good, thanks very much. Very good to see you again. We've known each other for a couple of years now, sort of through the AI dinners, and I've always been pretty inspired and look very thought-provoking stuff from stuff we've discussed before around AI. So it'd be great if you could kick off with an introduction to yourself, please.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes, Andrew, I think this is take two of our conversation. So I'm thrilled to improve on our last one, which was thrilling, but unfortunately, no one will see it. But good morning, everybody. My name's Eric. I'm Eric Schwartz. Andrew and I get to have gotten to know each other, as you said, through the AI Dinner, which is a wonderful monthly event that we host in London. And we're happy to share the information about the AI Dinner for anyone that's interested and wants to join us there, where we have great conversations. My background, a little bit about me. I'm an American living in the United Kingdom. I've been here for about 6 years, but my background is in information retrieval. So I started my career back in the 90s building digital libraries, taking paper documents and converting them and putting them into search engines. And these are the early enterprise search engines that came on market in the late 90s. Worked for a search engine vendor for a number of years. Ended up getting acquired in the late 2000s by Microsoft. Spent a few years at Microsoft as part of the SharePoint team, and then I took a turn in my career and started working for large corporates where we managed enterprise scale knowledge discovery platforms for consumer applications. So I was at Comcast where we had a knowledge discovery platform that powered their entire consumer video experience. So if you're a customer watching a video, watching a TV show on a mobile device or a set-top box, you hit our knowledge discovery platform for information about the television show, the actors, the movies, the things, channels you want to watch. All searches, all recommendations, all editorial promotions went through this whole platform. And then what brought me over to the United Kingdom was I took on a similar role for a company called Elsevier. If you're not familiar, Elsevier is the world's largest publisher of peer-reviewed academic literature. It's the leader in scholarly communications in the world, and they have periodicals and journals such as The Lancet and Cell. And we built a knowledge discovery platform for Elsevier to power their consumer-facing applications as well. And now I find myself running a little consultancy with all my years of experience building search and helping people connect content and their intents. I'm building a little search consultancy or AI consultancy called the AI Expert.ai. And so here we are today.
Great, thanks, Eric. Yeah, so great trajectory in that there of and content and getting insights from content. And of course, we had that pivotal moment with GPT and OpenAI launched just over 2 years ago, and that now, which was phenomenal, and that for us. What was your look back at that time of when you first saw GPT and put that in the context of where you've been through before and what you've seen on the internet and all this content and that now? What was your experience and what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Andrew. And to be honest, in November of 2022, when ChatGPT 3.5 launched, right, we sort of had this aha moment. And, I've been aware because we've been building recommendation systems for years, right? Our knowledge discovery platforms had AI and had machine learning and had machine learning optimizations built into the platform. And we saw, we've been spending around time with like Word to Vec and some of these early transformer models, and none of it was interesting, but none of it was game changing. And then 3.5 showed up, and suddenly, literally the world sort of pivoted, right? The world sort of went on a tilt. And I actually had a guy on my team who was like, Eric, you got to see what we can do with ChatGPT 3.5. And I'm like, okay, it's a chat bot. I get it. Like, I'm not so sure. Like, and then so he sat me down and says, listen, look at this content. Look at this academic content. I'm like, yeah, I've tried to read it before, but I'll be honest with you, I don't understand what it says, right? We've got thousands of journals and thousands of articles. I have no idea what these abstracts are talking about because I'm not in the scientific community. He says, well, listen, we can solve it for you. Let me just summarize it so you
Yeah,
can make it like a 5-year-old. And you're like, oh wow, this
yeah,
is
yeah.
this is really powerful. And then we figured out that we could take multiple documents and find out relationships with them. And so suddenly we have this huge repository of over 90 million pieces of academic content that we could suddenly make sense of and join together to start solving new problems. And that's when we as a team sat down and said, oh, okay, there's something more we can do with this generative AI thing. All right, we can actually make a trusted experience on top of all this content to help people really dig into it in a deeper way.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I think my experience back then when I first sort of saw it and that as well was wow. For me it was like the dot-com moment, right? And it was like, so I became an advocate for it and sort of started thinking, yeah, how is this going to work and how's the trajectory going to? Because to me, it looked back to the internet days with the .com. And when I was in my large corporates and I was saying to my large corporate, look at this stuff, we can put the information out there. We can get direct messages to customers. And it was, oh, no, no, no. People online are weird. We don't sell direct to customers and sort of stuff. I said, no, no, we got to start looking at this sort of stuff. And we saw that .com coming. And I suppose when I saw GPT, that first GPT, to me, it was like the mid to late 90s with the .com. Was that your sort of view as well? And what's your view of the trajectory now as where we've gone over the last 2 years compared to our .com experience?
Yeah, no, I think that's the right time frame. I remember, working, as I mentioned earlier, working for search engine vendors, especially, in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. We had a lot of customers that worked at three-letter agencies that we can't really talk about these days. But the problem that they were trying to solve, right? The problems that they were trying to solve at that time, looking at like classification problems, like what type of content is this? Looking at sentiment problems, is there anger, is there hate, is there frustration? Looking at just like language understanding or looking at signal identification. All these things are immediately solvable by GPT, right? All those problems that we've been looking at for decades were immediately solvable by ChatGPT. But in terms of where we are today, I honestly feel like we're still very much in the get a CD-ROM in the mail phase of the internet with ChatGPT, right? It's early days. I mean, remember in late 90s, we were trying to solve these problems with large systems, but the home access, right, was still very much over a 28.8
Yeah,
baud modem. And you had to kick someone off the telephone, right, to get on the internet.
yeah.
Um, I feel like that's where we are. And it feels like it's moving very quickly, and it did back then as well. But we have to remember that we still have a long way to go. It's probably a good another 5 or 10 years before AI is fully mainstream the way internet is today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I suppose that's right. So I suppose let's sort of look at it from a more strategic sort of type content. I wrote a book about 8 years ago now, and it was called Purpose to Performance, and it had 5 P's in it really about what's the purpose or vision of what you're trying to do. What's the right sort of process you want to look at? And I'd like to discuss this in terms of AI. What's the process of implementing it? And what types of processes are you going to change? The middle P is people, which I think is going to be central to all of this, right? We're going to be changing people's roles. We're going to be changing how they interact with systems. We're going to be changing how they think. Partners is the fourth P. You need to work with people like yourself who understand some of these things to actually get these things implemented. Or like in the internet days, it was AOL was your partner, or Microsoft Teams is your partner, or for these implementations. And I think the last piece, performance measures. And I think one of the things now with the likes of knowledge workers who charge by the hour, lawyers, consultants, IP advisors, people who are doing research like you were doing, going through lots of documents. These things can be now instantly done by the sort of system, so charge per hour. So the performance measures need to change. So just in terms of taking those sort of 5P contexts, what do you feel is going to be happening with AI and generative AI now about how strategically we think about it and process implementation probably to start?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great framework. And to unpack that a bit, I think there's a couple of ways to think about it. In terms of like where we are right now, in terms of people, the vast majority of our AI use cases are really around these personal productivity use cases. I want to post something on the internet. Help me create a LinkedIn post. Or I want to write an email to a client. Please review this email for me so that it sounds professional. Or I want to send a message to my executive team or to the board. Help me frame up the problem space and the data into. And so those are a lot of the use cases that we're seeing today in terms of like how AI is being applied in personal uses. But but the opportunity that we're seeing right now in companies and clients that I'm working with is getting to one of the next P's. I'm not sure I'm going to get them all back to you in the right same order,
But
but in terms of like the process, we now have the tools to rethink how we design workflows, right? We're starting by picking out sort of pieces of the workflow, right? And pieces of the business process where it's it's brittle, it's fragile, it's hard to do, it's cumbersome. Like how many businesses out there are still taking orders via email, right? And someone sits in a chair, right, and takes that order via email and types it into a spreadsheet, right? That's the way their business works. And it's worked that way for 15 years. Why should they change it? But that's a process that can be changed automatically. The reality is that we're going to get to a place where a message will come in, an email will come in, and it'll go into the order fulfillment system automatically with everything checked. And by the way, if there's any clarifications, the AI will go back to the client and say, "Well, did you mean blue or green, right? Did you know what
yeah,
color widget do you want this to be?" And so that whole workflow is going to change. And I wouldn't think about it in terms of like taking someone's job away, but now this person that sat there and just did sort of order entry, who probably knows the business better than anyone else in the organization because she's been there for 25 years and seen how everything works, she can now come and say, why don't we do it this way? Right? Why don't we think about how we can optimize and save all this money from doing, whatever it is, because she knows, right? And she's going to have free time to help your business accelerate. It's going to change how we organize our businesses, right? This sort of monolithic idea of come work for my company, become an employee. I'm going to pay you. I'm going to give you a salary. I'm going to give you a benefit. I'm going to give you healthcare. All these sort of things, right? I'm going to package you in, right? That has a cost associated with it, right? It's a cost that a business has to bear, and that's a cost like that. It's not flexible, right? Once you hire somebody, it's as part of your fixed cost of your business, and you've got to have a run rate that covers right those fixed costs. You, we now have the ability for individuals to come together just in time as partners to solve problems. We can bring experts together to solve partners, which now creates whole new forms of collaboration. It dramatically reduces our overhead, right? So we don't have to have this burden of this big sort of monolithic organization that needs this, all this information, right? Or all this revenue rather to
yeah,
keep running. We can bring it together just in time to solve specific problems, which means that there's now more skills available. There's now more people available. And then finally, back to the final point you said about how we measure this, right? Uh, Hours and billable hours, right? This is I remember when I was early in my days when I was first starting out in technology, I spoke quickly. I might still do that today. So I'll
yeah,
pause once in a while. But I said that, we were talking about billing for a client and I was talking about billable hours, right? And the CEO said to me, who's billable hours? I said,
right,
billable hours, billable hours. So this was like as a consultant, right? This is something that's always on top of your mind. Like how many of my hours are billable towards a client, right?
yeah, yeah,
So Bill Blowers needs to leave the room, right? We don't need Bill Blowers in the room anymore because it's really we should measure about shared outcomes, right?
yeah,
How
yeah,
much how much every call that comes into your call center, how much revenue do you generate from that call? Give me 10% of that, right? And so, and let's win together
yeah,
versus we creating a fixed cost. So we can change our metrics. Consultants that come in and say, listen, I'm going to create a fixed per diem or fixed retainer so that I'm always available for you and block out hours. No, let's drive shared outcomes where if you sign up new clients or you scale your business by 20%, give me 2% of that and we'll call it a win, right? Everybody wins that way.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, great,
So it's
great.
outcome based versus right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that. I think it's very relevant, and I think how we move to that, though, I think is one of the biggest challenges of this AI revolution, right? An example that I showed at one of the AI dinners was the investment platform we built for our angel investment group, which we're now putting into other sort of groups. So the, as you explained, sort of saying, okay, you've got these documents that are coming in via email, pitch decks and sort of stuff like that, or people are filling them out. And humans have to look at those pitch decks and have to do Google searches for competitor analysis and look at the business model and sort of stuff like that. AI can now do a lot of that analysis of the objective sort of type stuff. And then some of the subjective stuff it's reasonably good at and that as well. But I think AI now is good enough to actually make the investments So instead of making one £5 million investment because you need it to be that big because of all of the human resource and time that has to go into filtering all of these thousand pitch decks to get down to the three or four you want to invest in, you could now use AI to invest automatically in 50 of those businesses. And then AI can monitor, similar to examples you're talking about, can monitor the accounts, can monitor the customers, can monitor and help the marketing and the sales and get better outcomes. And then the humans can be actually involved in the real interesting stuff, not just sifting and sifting stuff that lots of other people are sifting and that as well, right? So I think for me, this AI gives the potential to change business processes in all sorts of ways that you're talking about, and different business models and different outcomes sort of type things than the old sort of methods that we probably looked at.
I love that example, Andrew. I think it's a fantastic way to think about rescaling and rescheduling your business because it's much, we think about managing risk and mitigating risk for organizations and investments. And so we spend all this time up front trying to figure out, okay, what are our best bets? And we come down with three or four because as humans, it's probably all we can keep top of mind right now. But in this AI age, right, why not take 50 bets, right? And then run all of them with a smaller investment and then see which ones perform. And you can do that now, right? It's an optimization. I like to think about it in terms of as well, in terms of like how we used to build software over the years. Back in the 90s when we first started building software, we had this process called waterfall, right? Where you wrote this large requirements document and you spent 3 months or 4 months reviewing it, getting all the pieces right, writing all the requirements in there. You hand it over to a business analyst. They would go and review it. They would dissect it for the engineering teams. Engineering teams would then spend 9 months going to build everything in that requirements document. Year and a half later, you added up with something that missed the point.
Yeah,
Right? So it's like, well, what the hell happened, right? We have this great requirements document. We had, this great review process. We had these amazing engineers that built the software exactly what it was. But we've seen those pictures, those cartoons about, right? That what the customer wanted, what the engineer built, what the
yeah,
architect
yeah,
designed,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? The cartoon that I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
the cart, the
But
tree. Well,
what
yeah,
changed with Agile is that we could take that 18-month cycle or 6-month cycle, whatever it is, maybe I'm exaggerating, and then push it down to 2 weeks, right? So we've got these smaller, tighter iterations, right? With AI, we've now compressed that. We can do an iteration, like a sprint iteration. We can do multiples in a day. We
yeah,
can do two or three in a single day. So it's the number of iterations, the number of tests that we can iterate through. That's what moves us forward and drives
yeah,
outcomes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can change and tweak along that way, right? Because as we've done with this investment and working with these sort of startups, but we've used the AI to analyze what one business I invested in, which sort of reduces plastic waste through water and through water sort of stuff. The AI was coming up and coaching the entrepreneur about how he could build customer loyalty and referral sort of systems and sort of stuff like that, and he was blown away by it, by that. So could we move the discussion a little bit more onto sort of medium term sort of type, your perspective now on the medium term? What's coming down the line now that it's making you excited that people are actually going to be doing, back end of this year or going into 2026? Is it agents? Is it, what's the sort of things that you're sort of seeing coming in the medium term that we need to start getting prepared for?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great segue into what the rest of this year and the next year will look like. We're now starting to see deployments of AI starting to take effect and having a real impact on the customer experience, on the business productivity, on the way businesses are operating. Um, Agents are still coming along. We're starting to see the first sets of agents being deployed, but there's still some architectural challenges with agents. Sharing context, for example, or sharing memories between agents, still not a solved problem. I think we saw a little bit of that when ChatGPT 5 came out, where it's trying to switch and route right between different AI models internally within the applicate within the experience itself. But what we're starting to see now is we're starting to see AI come up with ways to solve problems that haven't been solved inside the businesses before. And this is one of the examples that I'm most excited about that's coming right now to lots of medium and small enterprises is we spent a lot of time over the last 10, 15 years building these great systems of record, right? Our CRM systems, our ERP systems, our management systems, our financial planning systems, our sales management systems, all these systems live out there. But executives are still asking the question, why aren't we getting insights from these systems yet? Why aren't these systems helping us to get better decisions? The what we're seeing, what the answer was always from the executives was that there is we'll put it together in a big data cluster. We'll be able to build a big data platform, and once we get all the data into one place, right, we'll then be able to answer all your questions. The problem is that the data is all over the place.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, guess what? What happens, right? You put the data into the data platform, and you still can't get the insights from it. It's like, well, it turns out the data is not compatible, right?
yeah,
Turns out that we still don't know how to. So anyway, long to bring this a bit forward, what we're seeing now is we can now take AI to create a system of engagement. It becomes the place where I can now, as a business user, as an operator within my organization, ask questions of my data. It knows how to find those different silos of information. It knows how to bring that data together in an aggregate way so that instantly I can get a decision from this. And I'm not talking about going off and tasking an analyst to build a dashboard for 3 months. It's give me an answer right now to help me figure out this problem. Why is sales in Q3 in the US down for this month? Why are we doing better in Europe than we are in China? Right? Those are the kind of questions that we want to answer. And we can have the AI go gather that information, pull together some insights to suggest why that's going on.
yeah. No, great point on that there. And I suppose the a bit further out from the medium term into the sort of longer term, maybe going into the next sort of decade. I suppose a perspective I've got here that AI, as we were talking back about the internet and the dial-up and receiving a disk, to me that internet really didn't take off until we had the device in our hand and in our pocket, right? And I think I'm believing like Kai-Fu Lee, who's a was Google's man in China and now done investments and that within China's written a book about how, in fact, it's on my shelf and that here about AI 2041. In when AI is embedded into devices and it's seeing things, sensing temperatures, sensing conditions outside, and you've also got robots, and I don't just mean humanoid type robots, right, which are now starting to do races and starting to fight and starting to do particular things. But within the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those things are going to be embedded, and there are going to be companies and countries which are going to grasp that opportunity more than just being social media and sort of stuff like that that is being used in that at the moment. So my view with that, we need to start thinking more broadly about AI and that. And I've got a very good friend who's now building a restaurant business, and he's tried out robots in the kitchens and all that, not just about the ones that are doing bits of delivery. So have you got a bit more of a longer term view on how we need to be thinking, projecting this stuff forward from our experience of internet, etc.?
Yeah, no, I think there's two paradigms that are coming together that's going to end up being our future state. One, you've got this notion of these autonomous platforms, and they may take forms of autonomous robots or humanoid robots that we're starting to see on the internet. You're right, they're doing sporting challenges and people are knocking them over and doing parkour and things like that. But we're also seeing like Teslas, right? Cars that are out there that are really fully autonomous platforms. They're able to navigate roads by themselves. They're able to navigate traffic, weather patterns. And what we're seeing in common there is they're taking a lot of input signals, right? And they're able to accomplish a task or a goal, get me from A to B, right? It's sort of an easy one for this to think about. Well, that's where our AI systems in our enterprise are going to go as well. They're going to have all these inputs, all these signals that come in from lots of different places. It could be the weather, it could be the news, it could be the stock market, it could be the email system, it could be our CRM system, it could be our sales forecasting system. Those all create signal that the AI can then take in and then proactively make decisions or proactively make suggestions that'll help us on our goals, get more customers, generate more revenue, generate more business, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's that's where this is going to go. And for now, it's about A, the systems working autonomously. B, it's about the signals that they can get access to that they can process in parallel because we can't even contemplate the number of things that they can do. And we haven't yet begin to really push the boundary of what their limits are.
Yeah, yeah. No, fantastic points, fantastic points. So that's great, Eric. I think we've cantered through an awful lot there from the history of content and machine learning and the internet drive and the dawn of GPT and where we think things are going and that at the moment. So really appreciate your insights on that there, and thanks very much for your inputs. Any closing remarks on?
Well, I think the future's bright. I think we're just getting started. There's a lot that we have to learn. I think we learn a lot from each other by asking each other hard questions, by building communities. But I think my real takeaway, and this is what I tell a lot of clients, don't be afraid that the AI is going to take your job, right? It's going to take away the things that you don't enjoy doing, so we can spend more time having human to human conversations. We can spend more time enjoying life and doing what we should be doing. We should be enjoying our children's football games. We should be enjoying those dance recitals. We should be enjoying the times with our family together. And we're going to be able to take time away from work to be able to go do that because AI is going to handle these things that occupy our mind. That's where we need to be going.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely. No, so I think that's a great close because we hear lots of doomsayers about the threats of AI, and I'm a big believer in good people like us and the people we know. If they deploy it to bring that productivity and benefits and that to society and to the world, we will free up resources to deal with the bad things that are going on now, whether that's climate change or whether that's bad actors that are going to come into AI. But I think, yeah, it's very much that we should see this as a positive and for good sort of type opportunity. So
yeah,
thanks so much, Eric.
completely agree. Completely agree. Andrew, great to see you. I'll see you at the next AI dinner in London at the end of the month.
Yep.
Amazing always to talk to you, and thanks for having me on the podcast today.
Thank you.